Hi, I'm Karen. I'm one of the teachers at Blessed Yoga and I'm coming to you from sunny Greece. So if I'm squinting at you, I apologise. The sun here blasting down on us, how lovely. So I wanted to talk to you about, or teach you about Chaturanga Dandasana. It's a tough pose, there's no doubt about it. And it's one that we often can use escape valves for, I'd like to call it. So when we don't have strength in certain places, particularly the shoulder girdle, the core, we're not utilising our legs properly, then we can really collapse in this pose, and it can create some injuries really in the shoulder girdle, and it can aggravate the lower back if we're not using the core well, and it can just not feel so great. There's no doubt about the fact that it takes some time to build the strength. And in my classes that I teach, I always encourage people to go to their knees when they do this pose, whilst they're finding that strength and whilst they're getting that imprint of where they would ideally be. Now, anything that we talk about when we talk about anatomy is very individual. So I can give you some basic guidelines around that, but your skeleton is completely different to my skeleton. And my flexibility and my connective tissue, my muscular strength is very different to perhaps yours. And it's a pose I'm still very much working with. So I would suggest that you always approach your asanas with a sense of playfulness and a sense of being your own scientist within the pose. So you have to experiment with what works for you. And what I can give you here are a few drills that will help you to get the feeling for where you want to be in this pose, and also to help you build a little bit of strength. So the reason the shoulder girdle is often a little bit unbalanced is because we're not utilising it so efficiently, and so often we're coming into this front space a bit more. And that can be because we're very strong in this space, in the pectorals, and it's being contracted in. And we're not so strong in the other areas, which are serratus, which are just down underneath the ribs, into your lats, and then into your rhomboids, into all of this space. Okay, and so we can often find that we're falling into this front of the shoulders quite a bit. So some of the work we'll do this today in this session will be to help you to find those muscular groups and to work with finding how you can balance those a bit more in the shape. And then we will also look at how you can strengthen those places. So let's come over onto all fours, and before we go any further, let's just look at often what happens when we come into this pose. So I'll show you from on my knees. So often when we're in the pose, we think too much about coming down with our hearts in the face, and not so much about where we're moving to. So we're thinking about going down, and then that creates, you'll see, this sort of tension around my shoulders, and I'm not really using this space well. So when we work, we want to think more about drawing forwards, keeping lower belly engaged, and keeping those shoulder blades towards your spine, so they're retracted as you come forwards, and that heart space is staying open. And also, we've got our elbows above our wrists a little more. So I'll just show you that again. Okay, so what we can do to help all of this is, first of all, just start to find where are all these muscular groups that we're working with. So you can come onto all fours, and then just find hands just under or slightly in front of shoulders. Ideally, you've got the fingers vaguely to the front of the mat, but if wrists are a problem or shoulders are quite tight, you can turn them out a little. Okay, and then just start to find where you are here. So often we've collapsed already in the belly and the head's collapsed a little. So I want you to just find neutral with the spine. So just start to think, lengthen your tail, and that soft palate, the roof of the mouth, start to think about that going forwards a little, and notice now how the lower belly engages. The sides of your waist have got longer, and you feel perhaps a little bit more integrated maybe in the pose. And now just think about drawing your heads of your arm bones in towards the shoulder socket. Okay, from here, all I want you to do now is start to think about just dropping the rib cage a little. We're not bending the elbows, we're not collapsing in the back. It's not much of a movement, it's just like the rib cage drops down and shoulder blades retract to spine a little. Okay, this is retraction of shoulders, and your rhomboids are working here. Now press your thumb and first finger space down. Don't start to round the back. Keep that length through your spine. And then really try and spread your shoulder blades across your back. So it's like your armpits are drawing in a little, shoulder blades getting wider. And this is protraction of your shoulders. And this is where serratus is a bit more involved, down the underarm side, under your ribs. Okay, so we'll just practice that again. Slightly let the rib cage drop down. Retraction, rhomboids. Start to press thumb and first finger space down. Spread your shoulders. Protraction, serratus involved. Okay, so you can just practice that a little. And try and think about through this movement, keeping the top of your sternum just drawing forwards a little, that tail drawing back. Try not to stick your chin out. Keep the four sides of the neck long. And just feel how that core's really engaged. Okay, so that's just finding those actions that wrap the shoulder girdle back towards the rib cage a little. Okay, so from here, we'll now come to just find the imprint of the upper body. So for this practice, you might want to have 1 or 2 blocks, and you're going to sit astride the block. So if I show it you from the back, and then we'll come back to the sides, you'll also perhaps want, well, you will want to have a belt. So you're going to sit your bottom on your block, so your feet are to the sides of your hips, knees more together as you sit down. So if your ankles, your knees don't like this, your lower back doesn't like it, your hips, you take another block, you go higher. Okay, so we'll find our way from the side. And then you're going to get your belt. Okay, and you make a loop with your belt. So this wants to be roughly the width of your shoulder girdle, from not the outer arms, but more so from those bony bits on your shoulders, just sort of center of shoulders. Okay, so you just play with that loop in your belt, and then you're going to take that around behind you. So you get one arm through, the other arm through, and it's just going to go just above the elbows. So just turn so you can see that. So it's just in this sort of shape. Okay, so if you don't feel that you're pulled in a little at the back of the shoulders, you might need to draw the belt in a little. So again, here, just notice, so rhomboids start to work. You draw those shoulder blades in and down the back a little, and then just close your eyes and feel here how you're seated. So try and drop the sit bones down a little. Think about length in your tail, and then think about pressing up through the roof of the mouth. So soft palate really lengthens up. And then draw the front of your hips, those bony hip bones, draw them in and up a little, and feel how the lower belly now engages. Shave the front ribs down slightly, just soften front ribs. Take a moment, feel all of that, keep all of that engaged, so those front hips lifted a little, lower ribs soft, belly engaged, length from your soft palate to your tail, four sides of the neck long, like you're just lengthening, pressing the back of the head to a wall behind you. And then feel those shoulder blades retract into the spine. Find that smile of your collarbones. So almost like you lift the head of the sternum slightly, but all of this still engaged at the belly. And then lift up your arms and bring your wrists in line with your elbows and turn your hands back, flex your wrists. And then just take a few breaths here. Keep that length at the back of the pelvis. Keep your front hips lifted. Find that lift through the sternum a little, like you're smiling the collarbones. Shoulder blades into spine. Find the length through your soft palate to your tail. And feel how that is really engaging and working the core. And then just notice the shape. So really try and tune in here. Imprint this into your body, into your mind. And then just exhale, release. So it's even just sitting doing that can be quite intensive when we're working it all properly. So that is your upper body from your hips up, how you're working in that shape. Okay, so once we start to load that shape by being on the hands, it's much more intensive. So we're going to just work a little bit with where we place, so how we move forwards, so that we're a bit more engaged and the shoulder, the elbow, wrist placement is a little bit better. Okay, so you're going to have your blocks, 2 blocks, and have them lengthways. So if you don't have blocks, you can find a book that's roughly this height. Okay, so I don't know how big this is. Maybe about 6 inches high. Okay, and then you can bring your front of your fingers, your middle finger, to the back of that first block. And then this other block is just going to be a couple of finger widths back, maybe 5 or so centimeters. And then you've got your hands just in line, okay? You have your knees just back from your hips. And then we find this half plank. So just getting into this shape first. Feel you've got your hands under shoulders or slightly ahead. And then lift the front of the hips like you did when you were seated slightly. Lengthen the back of the pelvis, seat to heels. Find that lift from the back of the head as if you're pressing the back of the head towards the wall, as if there was a wall above you, pressing into it. And then that soft palate to tail connection. Feel how the abdomen's engaged. And then see if you can smile your collarbones a bit. Draw your shoulder blades into your spine. Retract your shoulders. So even that, when we're working fully, is quite a lot. Then from here, we start to come forwards. So we've got all of that still engaged. And we're bringing the heart space forwards. Chin slightly in, looking ahead. And we're lowering through to the block, and then we press back up. So this is a drill that really works that space. It's quite strengthening. It's also going to show you that when we don't work efficiently by going forwards, I'll show you now how you're going to know you're in the wrong place. Okay, so that was working efficiently going forwards, and then this is working less efficiently. So we get into this shape, and then we start to think about coming down to the floor, and then look, that block's pressing back, it's going to fall back. So instead of going forwards, I've thought more about going down there. And then my elbow's back behind the wrist, okay, and that creates that collapsing in of the shoulder. So again, just to show you this drill once more, you're on your hands and knees back from your hips. You've got the front of hips lifted, tail long. You're pressing your thumb and first finger space down, crown, the soft palate to your tail connected, and then we're starting to retract the shoulders, smile the collarbones, and then we're coming forwards, thinking more about going forwards, keeping the shoulder blades retracted, touching that block and pressing back up. And it's tough. So take a practice a couple of times, and then come to just rest in your child's pose. Bring your hands underneath your head. Take a deep exhale out the mouth. And you can do that practice, that drill, several times. If you do that 5 to 10 times, you'll really feel how you're working that space properly. And in Vinyasa practice, you'll notice when we do that 5 to 10 times, working it well, how exhausting it is. And in our Vinyasa practice, we're doing more of those. And often we don't feel it so much because we're collapsing in. And it is going to wear. over time on that joint. So try and take the time to do this drill and try and take the time to build this strength. Okay, so we also can work this in another fashion to work this coming down and forwards with a bit of support by using a bolster. So if I show you that one as well, and then we can work into wall work, which will help us with our core strength a bit more. So the bolster is going to be there as a guide to stop you from collapsing down too much in the shoulders. So actually, before we do that, if I show you how to find your hand placement, so a really nice way to find a rough guide for your down dog shape, your length between your feet and your hands, your plank, and then Chaturanga also, is to have your hands so they're in line with your breastbone space, and then it will mean roughly that your fingertips are in line with the front of the armpit space. Okay, so then when you come up and you find your down dog, you're roughly in the right length for your skeletal shape, roughly. Okay, this is all very generalized terms. So plank, just to look at that before we get the bolster, we're going to find our plank. Again, you can come to knees if you need to. And I want you to just notice in plank, you're drawing shoulder blades in again towards the spine, retraction. And then again, that length through the collarbones, that feeling like you're smiling the collarbones. So this space here, collarbones, smiling forwards, like the front of the sternum lifts a little. But often when we do that, we collapse in the belly and press the bottom out. So you have to just watch that escape valve. Okay, so here we are. Shoulder blades in towards the spine, smiling collarbones. Find that shape. Draw your front hips slightly up. Draw your lower ribs slightly in. Get that connection, sit bones to heels. Find that shape, shoulder blades retracting. And then there we are, half plank. Okay, and then you can lift into your full plank. And again, we want to retract the shoulders. Feel the back of the head lift. Roll the inner thighs up. Get the seat to heels connection. And bring the heart space forwards. Drawing front ribs up and breathing, shoulder blades in. Okay, so that's our start position. One of those. And then we have our bolster, underneath your chest space. So hips sort of going to come down onto it. And then again, hands are going to come under the shoulders. You're either going to have the knees on the mat, which for me at the moment I need to work a bit more, or you can be in your full plank if you know you're a bit stronger. And those front hips lift, the tail is long. You can tuck the toes or you can press the tops of the feet down. Again, shoulder blades draw in, lower ribs soften to front hips, tail long, soft palate away from tail, tail from soft palate, heart space, feeling that nice and open. And then just folding, coming forwards. So not collapsing down, forwards. And then keep those shoulder blades in towards your spine. Don't collapse at this point. Okay, so we keep here. And then you press back up. So you can practice that a couple of times. So coming forwards onto this half plank, bringing navel to spine. Front hips lift a bit, seat towards your knees, crown nice and long, soft palate from tail, tail from soft palate. Then draw the heads of your shoulders into the shoulder socket. Draw your rhomboids down a little so your shoulders retract. Bring your collarbones forwards and then come down and forwards, finding Chaturanga. And then pressing back up to work that shoulder girdle, and then find your way back. Take a few breaths at your child's, and just ease here. A few deep breaths. So again, that's to help you find the strength and to give you that support rather than feeling that you have to collapse down. So you see when I come down that I'm not letting those shoulders collapse in. So even when I'm making that transition down to earth from my half chaturanga, half plank, so I'm here and I'm engaged, and then I'm coming down, and then I'm going to let my belly and lower ribs come down and not collapse my upper chest. And then I'm here and ready for my plank or my up dog. I'm going to really press those toes down. Hello, bubbles. Lengthen through your soft tail. And then start to inhale and slowly come up. And then exhale, come back down. Still don't collapse my shoulders. And I work back to my down dog. And then we take the child's pose and find your breath. This is Bubbles, one of our rescue cats. Okay, so that's a couple of drills, a way to imprint the upper body strength, to find that space through the collarbones, to learn about how we work that shoulder girdle a bit more efficiently, a couple of drills to work on your elbow to wrist placement, and then a couple of drills to work on lowering. Okay, and then we'll come to the wall and we'll work a drill to help the belly strength. Okay, so this is a wall drill that you can do, which just helps you to find again this placement through the back line and through the abdominal space, so really working into the core space a little. So you'd come to the wall, as I am, and you'd have a block in between the knees. And then to start with, I just want you to try and just get that tail longer, so you start to feel that space between your lower back and the wall decrease, almost completely gone. And then draw your shoulder blades in and down, so retraction again, and feel that you're trying to bring the shoulders back a little to the wall. Get your hands back so that you've got that connection again through that space, so like we've imprinted earlier. Wrists in line with our elbows, again tail long, finding that belly contraction, and then slide the back of the head up the wall, and then just lift the front of the hip points a little, soften down through front ribs, but keep all of that action in the back body. Feel the belly towards the wall and breathe. So this is a nice way of working core strength. If you want to work it down a bit more, you can slide down the wall. Not so easy, but if you're in an indoor wall, you can. And then again, you've still got all that action working. You're lengthening your soft palate from your tail, tail from soft palate. You're pressing the heads of the shoulders back. You're lifting the front of the hips, engaging lower belly, and you're drawing shoulder blades in and down. And you breathe here. And you can hold this for about 10 breaths. Keep lengthening soft palate and tail away. And then release. And again, that's a nice way of just imprinting into your body, into your memory, your muscle memory, this shape, and also getting this core slightly more active. And then you take that into the full pose. Okay, so then after all of our drill work, we can come back to the mat and we can just pop that into the full transition, which we'll do now, and then we'll come to rest. Okay, so finding your positioning for your hands like we did before. So you want to have the hands in line with your breastbone, so fingertips are underneath or just in line with the front of your armpits. Again, my shoulder blades are drawing in and down. I'm trying to find that connection through my sit bones to my heels, lower belly lifting a bit from the mat. And then I press up, find half plank, and come back to down dog. Just take a breath at your down dog. Feel down dog. Press your first finger and thumb down. Soften your elbows. Draw your triceps to your upper arm bones and soften shoulder girdle a little. So let the crown, work away from tail, tail from crown. Roll the inner thighs back, seat to heels. And then let's inhale, fold, come forwards to your plank. So everything that we were just doing still engages. Shoulder blades into spine, bringing our heart space forwards a little, connecting our seat to our heels, lifting that lower belly a little. And then maybe we need the knees to come down. And we transition to our Chaturanga, bringing your heart space forward, shoulder blades into your spine. And you just come as low as is comfortable for you. And then belly, front ribs down, and find your back bend. And back to your down dog. And then taking a rest, a much well-deserved rest in your child's pose. So you can work, just take your rest, and then you can work that a few times if you've got any energy left after all your drills. And then you take all of that into your practice. And just know that it takes quite a long time to get into the full Chaturanga for most of us fully, unless we're already very strong in the upper body and the core. And take your time. It is a process. Don't try and go 3 steps ahead. Do stay within your skeletal, your mobility and your strength requirements for the moment. And then you can slowly, as you get stronger and more aware of the body, progress it. Enjoy it, play with it, and I hope that's helped your practice. Namaste.